I'm Doug Jessup.
And I'm Nisha DeGaring, and welcome to Family Heritage Stories, where we talk about what makes us who we are. Things like traditions, values, culture.
How are these things passed down from generation to generation? Through deeds, through words, through stories. What does a hero mean to you? To me, it's ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It's time for Hero Salute Stories.
My dad, when World War II broke out, was still a little too young, so he was working in the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCCs, and he did that till he was old enough to enlist. He enlisted in the Navy. He served in the Pacific. He was on a ship called the USS Marblehead that was hit in a battle. It was hit and fought lost because its radio had been destroyed after the battle. Nobody could find it, but it turned out the rudder had been jammed and it could only make circles, and it circled its way to Java. And in Java, it was able to report that it was still, they were still alive above water. They were offloading some of their injured, and my grandmother then received the notice that my father was no longer missing in action. He was serving on a ship that preceded the Missouri into Tokyo Harbor, and he was the one taking soundings to make sure that the channel was deep enough for the Missouri so they would not run aground. And yes, amazing. And then, of course, the Korean War came along, and he served in the Korean War, and retired after 21 years in the Navy.
Sounds like it was amazing.
There was so much that was amazing about him, especially because he was very shy. His parents were from Italy, and so he grew up in an Italian-American neighborhood, dropped out of school when he was in 8th grade to help support the family. He was the third oldest of 9 children, and they needed to work to keep the family alive. But he was very handy. He could fix anything, even though he didn't want anyone to watch him because he didn't know what was going on, but he could figure it out if we didn't disturb him, and he fixed anything that we had back in those days, mechanical, not electronic, but he could fix anything, and was very modest about himself. I remember one time my daughter and I got to tour the Missouri in Hawaii, get it ready for some project that was coming up. And when I told my dad about it, he goes, "Oh yeah, I remember when the Missouri ran aground in Virginia." And I'm like, "What?" And he says, "Yeah, I was a tugboat captain then. I was one of the tugboats trying to pull it off the reef that it had gotten grounded on."
Drill sergeant once told me that integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking. That's what a hero is, and I think heroes come in all forms.
A hero to me is somebody who's willing to step up, not because they're asked to, but simply because they know it's the right thing to do.
A brave individual who goes out of his or her way to protect others.
I've seen heroes in the military, served alongside them.
A hero is someone who will give up their freedoms, their safety, for your freedom and for your safety.
All of our military members who signed that dotted line.
Sacrificing everything.
Doing whatever it takes to help another.
Life, limb, love of family, whether it's freedom or those in need.
I consider every person that fights for our country a hero.
Doesn't do it for the money, doesn't do it for the fame.
They don't care about, the recognition that they're going to get from it.
The spontaneity of reacting or sacrificing and giving up of themselves just to help another human being.
A hero to me is my mother.
My dad is a former vet from the Navy.
My mom was the first woman in the Florida Air National Guard.
I couldn't have a better hero.
She's my hero.
Una persona extraordinaria que lucha para salvar este gran país.
Hero is someone who faces insurmountable circumstances, but yet still puts himself out there.
Someone who puts the team first.
Someone that's willing to lay it all on the line.
Even when they're scared, they give all they got, and sometimes you got to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves.
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're going to beat them and bust them. Beat them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad today.
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys.
There is something so special about the bond between a grandchild and grandparent. So how would you answer the question? Tell me about your grandma or grandpa.
Okay, I have a lot of stories, but I think I will talk a story about my grandfather. Because my grandfather, he was a carpenter, and he made lots of stuff by his hand, you know. And now all of that stuff are in the house. So still, I have like a family house. It's a house that have more than 100 history. It was constructed like in the beginning of 20th century, and it still exists. And it's like our family house. And do you know, like I discovered my family history up to 10th generation. Like in Ukraine, yeah, because I'm doing researches in Ukraine. So I managed to find like the name of my great-great-great-grandpa. And I found that all of them, including my grandpa and father, all of them were born in the same house, in the same village, in the same house, in the same place. So, and nowadays it's like the family house. And you know what? I started to renovate this house because for 20 years, no one live there anymore. So, and it's like my mission to restore this and to save like the family history inside it, because there are lots of things that my great grandfather and my grandfather did, and all of them are there. So it's the story of my family.
So what's the name of the village? Where is this house located?
So the house is in the village named Stremy. It's near Lviv in Ukraine, because I'm from Ukraine. And heritage, like, you know, like family for me means everything. That's why I started to do this for other people. Like, I started to discover my family, like the history of my family. I discovered there are lots of stories, lots of like moments that is very interesting, very important. And I started to do it for other people. Because for me, like, to preserve it, it's like to feel my superpower, you know, like it's so it's like this.
A little bit later in the show, we find out the story behind one of the treasures remembered here at Anthony's Fine Art and Antiques.
Up next, we're talking about family traditions.
Інтернет? Я його не знаю і не хочу знати. Ну, це така штука, де там людей заводять і вони там показуються.
Ну, як це вони звуться, господи. От голова вже стара.
Інтернет, я що?
Інтернет. Ну, оці як вони.
Ходила, блудила дівка по саду, щипала і вала шовкову траву.
My name is Miklos Bot.
and I'm the founder of the Polyphony Project. We are collecting folk music in Ukraine, something like in the last 4 years. We visited around 100 villages already and recorded 2,000 songs and created a digital archive which contains all of the records from the villages. Almost every village has still this kind of connection with the tradition. But we see that this is a very last generation. So to save this kind of knowledge, to have this diversity, we have to somehow generate or stimulate the situation that the young people somehow learn this music. We are in Chernihiv Oblast and we are going to the village Vovchok. So actually we make a few preparation, but it's also a new village for us, so we didn't record here to the archive.
What's the biggest challenge when you arrive in a new place like this?
There's never a problem to make connection with these people because they are so happy if somebody is interested. Я Міклош, угорський хлопці. Я дуже радий, що вас зайшло так багато.
Бо там камера налаштована так, щоб все було красиво.
Окей? So, будь ласка, дівчата, будь ласка.
Комп'ютери.
Чи комп'ютер?
Ну а що, діти вчаться?
Да, розкладається, складається і там все в комп'ютері. Да. Тоді треба з нього заходити в інтернет, так?
Да.
Ну то це.
Да, на роботі ми співали. І вдома так само. Ой, молоді люди. Тепер хіба такі молоді співають. Оце такі, як ми. А молоді таких пісень не співають. Щас. І не люблять вони ж. Вони ж і не люблять таких. Вони співають не українських, а такі ж теперішні, популярні пісні.
Заміж молодою, за діброву, ще за гірку долю,
Of course, everyone will be connected with the global culture. And I think this is why it's so important that we really try to record in high quality audio, high quality video, this kind of knowledge. We really believe that this music has power. It's very important to understand that music and singing is really like language. If you just really take your time and sit down and try to sing these songs and try to understand these songs, it starts to open for you.
Ви знайдіть нашу сторінку, там ми вже, все, ми там, я не знаю, скільки нас вже там є.
Яка наша сторінка?
Оксани треба питати.
Треба питати то.
Там ми вже є по всій Україні. Ми зайняли перше місце по Україні, не забув.
You're watching Family Heritage Stories with me and my grandpa. We'll be right back.
Everyone has a story. Stories have power. They help us understand each other.
If you want help saving your family heritage stories with a private interview, contact Krista at fedorafoundation.org for pricing and availability.
Welcome back to Family Heritage Stories. With another edition of The Caring Stories, we are joined today by Tanya Toole, Executive Director of Holding Out Help. Tanya, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to hear about the important work that you're doing at Holding Out Help. Can you start by just telling us about your mission and what it is that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Our mission at Holding Out Help is to provide those from a polygamous culture really the care, support, and resources to become independent and self-sufficient. And although there are so many different moving pieces in this, our ultimate goal is to help them go from a closed, isolated community to full independence out in our society.
Such amazing work that you do and so important. And I believe that most of us, especially here in Utah, have heard of these polygamous groups.
Yeah.
Can you help us understand the need for this critical care that you offer and the services that Holding Out Help provides?
Yeah, that's encompasses so much, but I'm not from Utah originally, and I moved here in like 96. And I remember my husband and I really just kind of joking about this topic of polygamy, but just really didn't think it was very prevalent. And then we received an email asking if we'd open up our home to be a safe house. And through this whole it's about 3 years of bringing people in and out of our home, we realized there was nearly 60,000. They prefer to be called fundamentalists, 60,000 fundamentalists living in the Western United States, Canada, and Mexico, but a majority right here in around Utah. And so it's massive. Our agency serves usually between 150 to 250 people per year. But Utah decided to take polygamy from a felony down to an infraction in 2020, the same as a traffic ticket. And what transpired from there is that the people that needed us just started to increase slowly to where we served over 400 people last year. And so the need is huge, huge, huge.
Wow, that really punctuates the prevalence of these groups in today's society. This isn't just a historical concern. This is prevalent today. What are some of the ages of the people that you serve?
Gosh, we have whole families sometimes that come out. The biggest group was 4 children. The youngest was only 5 years old. The average is usually, if we're having kids that are coming out, is between the age of about 14 and 18. Right now, we're just seeing a lot of young adults that might have a child or two that just need to get on their feet, and they've chosen to walk away from their polygamous groups. And then we do have whole families as well. So
It's amazing the bravery that it takes, and then you are there to lend a helping hand, to
Yeah.
hold out help. What are some of those services that you offer?
Great question. We have 3 locations. Our main hub is in Draper, Utah, and there we have direct services of case management, tutoring. We have a full mental health care division with 4 counselors and a neurofeedback clinician. And then we have 2 other properties that are considered independent living facilities where we can house families or we can house individual women who are actually transitioning out. So, and then we partner with all kinds of amazing agencies throughout the valley to make sure they have the job skills, the education, life skills, and anything else that they need to get on their feet.
It's amazing. You really offer the full gamut of wraparound services, not just removing from these tricky situations, but then reintegrating into society or integrating for the first time many of these young adults and children, like you said.
Yeah, and I think people need to understand that when you're coming from a closed, isolated environment and you're dumped in our competitive environment, even making the most basic decision can paralyze you. And so it's so important that they have an advocate, a case manager that's walking alongside through every step needed to be able to get them self-sufficient. So they need to have a friend, and they lose everybody when they leave. So it's very difficult for them.
A friend, an advocate, a champion. You guys, you really offer it all. How can the community get involved in all of this great work that you're doing?
Yeah, we survive off of our volunteers within our community. It's a massive part of who we are. Obviously, donations are huge. Everyone's uncertain about our economy, and so donations have been down this year out of those concerns. But more importantly, we love our volunteers, people that step up and maybe help us with an event. They might be out pulling weeds at one of our locations. If they have specialty skills, something that we're always looking for is legal assistance. So people that can help us with family law per se. We're always looking for dentists, orthodontists. I mean, just anything that you can imagine, we really do need. And so, if you're out there and you think that you might have something to offer, please call and check with us because most likely we'll need you.
I love that. So, regardless of each of our personal opinions or politics, here is our opportunity to get involved with such an important cause of helping our fellow community members, right?
Absolutely. And it's right here in our backyard, right? We're not going to another country. This issue, this problem is right here in our very own backyard, and they have an opportunity to help make a difference in someone's life.
And there's so many ways to get involved, right? I mean, we all have something to offer. If you can make a donation, make a donation. If you have some of the services and skills that you mentioned, please consider getting involved in that way as well. Tanya, where can people go to find out more and to get involved?
Yep, we are on our Facebook, Holding Out Help, Instagram, Holding Out Help. Our website is holdingouthelp.org. We usually list our needs and the different services that we need. And then we're also on the Just Serve platform as well. So any of those, you can reach out and find us.
So many ways to get involved. You couldn't have made it easier. Thank you for the important work you do. And thank you for helping with Holding Out Help.
I am Olena, I am from Ukraine, and you are watching Family Heritage Stories.
There are reasons why people celebrate things like Swiss days or Day of the Dead. It's about one word: culture.
And today we're in a town 30 kilometers away from Lviv called Zhovkva. And Zhovkva is actually a small town, but there's a castle and a city hall. And we're going right now on the city hall to touch the clock. Now you can see the main square, Vecheva Square. In Ukraine and Zhovkva, there are so few restrictions that totally don't scare me. In Zhovkva, there's even a Roman Catholic church, which is called St. Lawrence. Now we're entering the city hall of Zhovkva. In 1707, Russian Tsar Peter was in Zhovkva for 4 months. He had a military council here and gathered airworks against the Finnish. Also, here he claimed his plans to abolish Ukrainian autonomy in order to make his empire stronger. This made Ivan Mstifa rule Ukraine into a faithful ally, start negotiating with the Swedish concerning the future war against the Czechs and Tsars. There are telephones of famous people across the museum. Let's climb to the top. Listen to the voice of Stefan Bandera, leader of Ukraine arrested. Promise you, I am touching the clock. See the whole town and just the castle.
I love to explore the stories behind objects. It's time for Treasures Remembered. You have a Torah that is more than a Torah to me. It's more than a scroll of writings. It has a story behind it. Can you share that?
It's 400 years old. It originated from the Netherlands and was created by people who had left Portugal after the Inquisition and gone to the Netherlands to be able to have freedom of religion.
You know, it just makes you think, okay, here's a Torah that's 400 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And to think of the people that have read that have heard that being spoken. I mean, it's just awe-striking.
You think about all the things that have happened in the world and in the Jewish world since that Torah was written. Europe used to have a very vibrant Jewish community, and in some places still do, but other places those communities have been decimated. And so When I walk through those synagogues, I think about the people that used to pray in there and the pride they took in their synagogue, and the people who would gossip in the hallways, and the kids who would get in trouble for running and being too loud. And with this Torah, I think about how when it was written, the pride that that community must have had in it, and the number of people who heard it and studied from it and maybe became bar mitzvah through that Torah hundreds of years ago. And part of the thing with that Torah is that before our families even could conceive that we would exist someday, like great grandparents reading from that Torah scroll, they were hoping that one day their descendants would read from that same Torah, and that we would keep that tradition going, and that we would pass it on to future generations.
Part of family heritage stories is passing along good stories. But you know what? It's also passing along those hard stories, those things when you had to struggle.
Ой, у лузі червона калина похилилася, чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо. Ой, у лузі червона калина похилилася, чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо. Ой, у лузі червона калина похилилася, чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону калину піднімемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо. Ой, у лузі червона калина похилилася, чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону калину піднімемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо. In the meadow there a red kalina has been bent down low.
It's our honor to be able to help people remember where they came from.
If stories are not passed down from generation to generation, the stories are lost, and it's as though those people never existed.
So how do you want to be remembered? With another episode of Family Heritage Stories, I'm Nisha Dagari.
And I'm Doug Jessup.